Okay, here's my handlebar with a clutch lever and all the nuts and bolts and diddly doodlies and whatnot on it. Having a look at it, and to be honest with you, I'm not 100% sure how to get the cable out. I've watched a couple of videos on YouTube, the old TubeU, and a lot of them are very generic, and quite simply you pull, you give it some slack here, you pull your lever back, and the cable just pops out. But hello, looking in there, it's so dark. I'm actually beginning to think that handy little tool this. It's a phone and a flashlight. I'm actually beginning to think, of course, any fucking need. Okay, as you can see, clutch cable here is tightened up as far as it will go, which means that what I've actually done is given myself some slack. Right, that gives me a little bit of room to play with on the lever. That's going to make it easier for taking out the cable itself in a minute. Just wait for the bus to go by. Because otherwise you won't be able to hear a damn thing I'm saying. And because of the compact nature of this bike, I'm having a little bit of trouble getting underneath to see where the cable's at. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this clamp off. And hopefully I can show you exactly how it all comes undone, which should make it easier to put back together as well. Okay, so there's my clamp off. Remember, I always keep my nuts and bolts inside whatever bit it is that I've taken off. It helps stop not losing it. Another handy tip is if you've got one of these things, they are fantastic for putting your little bits and pieces in so that they don't get lost. So I'm going to put that in there for now. Where the hell did that come from? Okay, that was weird. A little washer's just fallen off from underneath there. Okay, it's amazing the places you don't check because you think, ah, that's alright, I don't need to check there, and you do. So there you go, weekly checks. Check your bike over thoroughly from head to toe. If you've done any first aid training before, you know what the head to toe is, so it's exactly the same on your bike. I'm going to have to move the camera a bit because I can't see. There we go. What needs to happen here is, you can't see it because it's kind of mucky, or maybe you can see it. There's a little circle there, right, and a little flat bit. And what happens is there's like a pin that pops out there, and the cable's going to come around and it will come out like that, which is why I've had to take this bracket off, because there's just no way I could do it with the bracket, the whole lot on there. No. Funny enough, that feels a lot tighter since I've actually taken it off. Feels a lot tighter. Because it's so gungy, I'll whack it with some WD-40. Let's see if I can clean that out a bit. It's going to help me see what I'm doing. Also free off any parts that might have been stuck together. As I've said before, I'm not a mechanic, and basically the stuff that I'm learning to do on my bike, I've only learned off of the YouTube. Alright, so don't take everything I say as gospel. I'm just, you know, recording my own efforts. And if it goes well, then you know it works. But my method might not always be correct, so don't follow what I say exactly. Always refer to your owner's manual. I just want to share some of what I've learned in the hopes that it might benefit someone else. So what I've done, I'm not going to show you this bit again, but basically it's your clutch cable. Alright, the unit, the bracket, as you can see there, fits onto your handlebar, and then the back there's a plate which goes in there. It's held on by two little Allen bolts, alright, which I've taken off with the clamp, and I've stuck in there for safekeeping. Okay, so that's off. What I want to do is line up these grooves. You've got a washer there, you've got a washer, the tightening bolt, that's the tightening bolt, you've got a washer in there, tightening bolt, and the actual screw, which is what you actually use to adjust the clutch tightness. And each of them has got a little groove on it, and you want to line those grooves up, okay, because that's how we're going to get the cable out. So we want to line those up. And because my bike is all rusted and mean and difficult, I need to give myself a little bit of play. Probably would have been a lot easier if I'd have left it there. Okay. See, this is the frustrating part. This is when Peachy gets mad. When Peachy gets mad, things get broken. They don't get done properly. So, top tip for you: you need to be patient. Patience is key in this. Because if you're not patient, it all goes horribly, horribly wrong. Okay. now I have a problem. Okay guys, I have to admit I cheated a little bit. Struggling to get it off, and I didn't want to look like a prick on video. There's a famous saying, better to remain silent and force a thaw than to open your mouth and remove all doubt. So basically that's what I've done. I've got it off with a little bit of brute force and ignorance, and I really didn't want to record that. But basically this is the principle of it. Is your handle goes into there like that. Okay, there's a nut which goes in there, and on this particular bike there's a lip. Okay, so the actual hexagon end of the nut, that is the bit that you would usually tighten with a spanner or loosen, take off with a spanner. I couldn't do that because that lip was stopping the bolt from spinning, and what I had to do was, on the underside there's a bolt. Right, you take the bolt off, and there's a nut, sorry, and the actual bolt pops out. So once the bolt pops out, take it out, and this then took a bit of persuasion, right, but eventually it came out. And with these three, you see the little groove there lined up with the groove in the bracket, I was able to take the cable out. Okay, so there's the cable. Doesn't look terrible, in terrible condition, but I think it's just stretched. I think it's just old and stretched, and there's not an awful lot of play in it. So I suspect what's happened is that's the actual inside has just gotten mucked up to high heavens, and I probably could have just lubed this one, but seeing as I'm going to do the clutch plates anyway, I figured get a new clutch cable. The good thing about getting new parts is that you always know how much servicing I've had. This bike's 20 years old. I have no idea how old this cable is or when the last time it was lubed. For all I know, there could be anything wrong inside there. It's just not worth keeping, so I've changed it for the price of a new part, which was very, very little. Not worth keeping. You can see that the outer casing on this one in there is actually split, and I can get my finger inside the outer cabling, so it's just not worth keeping. So that's the cable out and freed off from that end. Come around here. Now here's why sports bikes are a pain. Every other bike I've seen anyone working on YouTube, this is always a very easy access sort of job, but because of the fairing on this, okay, it makes it a little bit more inaccessible. I wouldn't say difficult, but more inaccessible. What I started trying to do was taking the fairing off. I haven't got a screwdriver for this particular job, and that screw there is so old, it's been chewed up so much in the past that I started taking it out and it just wouldn't come. I was just mincing it, so I stopped. If you start mincing, you don't stop before you go any further. Stop, think, and act. Okay, I've got the cable off at this end now, and basically what happens is that nut there, that nut there, unscrews from here, okay, which sits inside of that clamp. Alright, you can see it goes through there, and just up here you see a little gap. What happens is, as you undo the bolt, the nut, sorry, you'll be able to push that back, and then the cable slips over the top, and that's what frees it. Okay, so I'm going to keep that little nut because extra nuts and bolts are always handy. Put it over here for the time being. And now it's time to pull the old cable out. Right, I just want to lay this on the ground a sec. Look at the state of this. Look at the state of that. Now, would you say that was worth lubing up and keeping? I don't think so. Yeah? Just look at it. Rust everywhere. Degraded. Rotten. Minging. Compared to this nice new shiny new one. So that's definitely a good buy. I think 15 quid it cost me, something like that. Best money I ever spent.